Do you remember what it feels like to ride a bicycle up a hill? It's nowhere near as fun as riding it down a hill, is it? If it's a bike like the first bike that I had, there's no gears. The only way to get up that incline is to get out of the saddle and push with your whole weight into the pedals. It's tough work. Sometimes it's so tough, I'd end up walking next to my bike and pushing it the rest of the way. There's a hill near our house that's 1 kilometre from the bottom to the top and 100 metres from the bottom to the top. That's a 10% average grade. So every 10 metres I go forward, I go up 1 metre in elevation. It's a hill so hard that droves of lycra-clad ladies and lads do loops of it every morning. There's a tongue twister I didn't realise that I'd put in this. That kind of climbing, it might seem beyond you, and that's okay. It's not normal to ride a bicycle like that. So just imagine, instead of, climbing the hill at Bronte or the hill near you, which is 100 metres in elevation, you climb something much bigger. Much bigger. In fact, the biggest, Mount Everest. That's 8,848 metres of elevation. It's a thing called Everesting. It's something that cyclists do. Ride the equivalent altitude of Mount Everest in one ride. Pick a hill, ride laps of it until you get 8,848 metres of climbing. It can take 12 hours sometimes. Now, if that's got you hurting just thinking about it, hold on to your helmets. My podcast guest this week is a world-famous ultra cyclist, an Australian based in Spain, the incredible Jack Thompson. He's looked at the Everest and gone, yeah, how can I do better? Jack is riding 1 million metres of elevation in 1 calendar year, and he's trying to raise €1 million for charity while he does it. That's over 113 Everesting attempts, more than one a week. Over the weekend just past, he broke through 900,000 metres of climbing. He's doing it to raise €1 million for mental health support services, Kids Helpline here in Australia, Strong Minds in Africa, and Outride in the US. Now, many charity challenges, similar ones, they're connected to a personal story. Jack's story is one that's absolutely worth listening to, the kind of story that would make you want to willingly strap your feet into some pedals and ride 1 million metres of mountain climbing in 1 year. My sit bones hurt just thinking about it. This podcast shares that story, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Let me tell you about my guest today. Jack Thompson is an ultra cyclist who grew up in Australia and now calls Girona in the mountains of Spain home. An ultra cyclist is someone who pushes beyond the standard distances and measurements of even the most elite, high-achieving cycling professionals. In 2017, he cycled 50,000 kilometres in 12 months. By 2019, he was doing 3 Everesting challenges on 3 separate countries in 3 days, 880 Ks, nearly 27,000 metres of elevation, and 71 hours. That's including all transfers. In 2020, he set a Guinness World Record, the most kilometres ridden in 7 days, 3,505 Ks. And in 2021, this one's bonkers, something he called the Amazing Chase, which is the Tour de France in 10 days. Every stage, 21 stages, 3,500 kilometres, 52,000 metres of elevation gain. That's a regular Tour de France takes 22 days. He did it in 10. Truly a gobsmacking, incredible effort of human endurance. And so what's he done in 2022? In 2022, Jack has embarked on an astounding challenge. He's going to try to climb 1 million metres of elevation in 1 calendar year, all to raise money for mental health charities. Now, this might all sound like a blur of figures, so I'll distill it down. Jack is attempting to do what no other athlete in history has ever contemplated nor completed. What he's learning about himself, how his brain works, how to challenge negative thoughts, how to deal with the urge to stop when he's tired, how to get out the door when it's cold and rainy and his body aches, those lessons He's very generous in sharing throughout this conversation. And those are things that you and I can use every single day without ever getting on a bicycle or going near a hill. Jack's story is a big one. The motivation behind this challenge is a big one. It covers mental ill health, drug use, drug addiction, suicidality. So just a heads up, those things are on the way. The link to donate to Jack's cause is in the show notes. You can click that now, throw some bucks his way if you can, or maybe wait till we're finished with the episode. I don't mind. Either way, this fella and those causes deserve our support. He's just crossed 900,000 meters as of this recording. When we spoke, it was a little under that. So you can follow his last 100,000 meters of climbing on Instagram. He's Jack Ultra Cyclist. Let him know you heard him here. And enjoy connecting with this superb Australian human being. This is Jack Thompson. I'm so excited to speak to you, mate, because what you're doing. I can be quite nerdy around my cycling. However, there'll be two people who will resonate with that, you and me. So there's a lot of people listening who have no idea about a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about. But essentially, you are trying to climb 1 million meters of elevation in a calendar year. That's bananas.
It's a lot of elevation, and it's probably more elevation than I thought it was going to be on the 31st of December 2021. So we kicked off on January 1, and I've had this goal, and it's essentially to climb 20,000 metres every week of the year. And man, am I ready for this year to be finished.
And that's okay. That's okay, because it's a gargantuan effort. And, when they interviewed David Tour at the end of the State of Origin, and, they've just won, and he's going, oh, that was a hard game, and that really hurt. Like, he's the fittest, most brutal, kind of incredibly nimble NRL player that's walked the earth in the last 5 years. It hurts. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It is hard.
So it's 1 million meters of elevation to raise €1 million.
Yeah, exactly. €1 million for mental health.
Amazing. And it's not like you woke up one morning and went, I'll do this. Like with anything, there was a build up. You kind of kick the ball a bit and went, oh yeah, I can do this. And then you kick the ball a bit more and went, yeah, I can do this a little bit more. And you've done, it's called ultra cycling essentially. It is the furthest you could possibly imagine riding on a bicycle without sleep or enough calories that is humanly possible. For some people, they would be like, well, why the fuck would you do that? Why would you deliberately ride a bike up a hill? Like some people,
And let's be honest, I've asked myself the same question this year.
I bet you have. What I'm grateful to talk to you about is, this is a humongous thing that you're attempting. But what I'm really excited to talk to you about is that the role that cycling has come to play in your life around managing your headspace. And I think that's there's something I definitely can relate to. And I know many people, whether it be literally riding, the entire distance of the Tour de France in 10 flat days, which you did, and it's bonkers, same course, same hills, same mountains, same everything, but 18 days or something quicker than everybody else. Whether it's, people don't do that, but they go, oh, I feel a bit shit, I'll go for a walk. They do 10 minutes walking around the block and they feel better. Exercise changes the way our brains work, and it makes 100%. Our brains work better and deal with things far better. And so I think that's the thing that I think people might be interested to hear about. But where are you in the world right now? You're in Europe somewhere.
I'm in Spain, so I'm actually an hour north of Barcelona in a little medieval city called Girona, which has become home.
Wow.
So
that is super cool.
It's a bit of a change from Perth, Western Australia, but it's actually the hub of cycling worldwide, believe it or not. There's 200 odd professionals live in town. It's like a little university town for cyclists, so to speak.
It's like the LA of cycling. And is that because it is A, close to an airport, B, has lots of really good hills quite close, and C, there's not a lot of traffic?
Pretty much. It's cheap as well. It's cheap to live here. Andorra's close, which a lot of the guys use as a tax haven. Weather's pretty good year round. There's now the facilities here. I think it was originally, Armstrong was living here, so that created a bit of a buzz around it. And from there, it's just the infrastructure's grown.
Far out. So, if you need a spare cassette for your bike, no, the Shimano, the other one, like someone's got one nearby.
You can get everything you need here. It's great. It is good.
Wow, that's extraordinary. What a cool place to live. That is, but you don't get there by accident. There's at some point. I used to tell people when they asked what you moved to. I lived in Los Angeles for 10 years, and they say, "Well, why'd you move there?" I'm like, "Well, look, if you're a downhill skier and you want to be in the Olympics, you'll move to Austria, or you'll move to somewhere where there's like proper mountains. If you're in finance, you'll move to Singapore, you'll move to London, you'll move to Manhattan, New York. If you're in television, that's where you go, because that's where they do it the best in the world. So it makes sense that someone who's operating at the elite level you are would want to be there at Mega Cycle HQ, which is pretty sick. And I do love that after living there for quite a while, that I mentioned by now that your Australian, your Perth accent is still fabulously strong. That's glorious.
I'm trying to learn the local language, because it's actually not Spanish, it's Catalan. And I do get told that my Catalan accent's not bad, but I think the Perth accent is still strong.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So what part of Perth did you grow up in?
So I grew up in Cottesloe, so on the coast there. Great spot to grow up. I guess the problem with Perth is it is, as you probably know, very remote if you want to make things happen. And I think especially in a cycling sense, we don't have mountains, we don't have big hills, and you're a long way from Sydney or Melbourne, where most of the decisions get made in Australia. And it was in 2019, I actually came to Europe for a bit of an event over here, or a project, and I popped into Girona to show a film that we put together. And suddenly these opportunities came to work with different brands and do different things. And I thought, it was never planned that I was going to move here, but I thought, I have to be here if I really want to make a go of this. And I did have a dog at home. I didn't have a partner. So the dog was the only thing sort of keeping me in Perth, aside from family and friends. And I thought, you know what? I have to take a bit of a plunge here. I was lucky I've got an Irish passport, so I didn't have to deal with the visa hoops. And I went to a real estate agent and said, look, I need an apartment. And I just got a super cheap, shitty little apartment. But it was my sort of beginning of, setting myself up in Europe and making a go of cycling.
That is fantastic. You came to cycling late though. I learned how to ride a bike like real early. I mean, I think I was 8 when we got the first like proper, when everyone had BMXs and life was sick. I was 8, but that was late for me in my neighborhood. You were even later, weren't you?
So the funny thing with me is I started off riding normally, like traditionally as you would as a kid. I then sort of went into triathlon as a early teen. And it was that time my mental health wasn't good. I noticed that there were things that went wrong. My parents had told me, you need to go and chat with someone. And I was confused. Like, I was a young guy, I didn't really know what was going on. And what I found was that doing the triathlon, having that swimming, riding and running, I guess, goals every day, it gave me a focus, and it gave me a sense that I was actually achieving something. And so all throughout school, my mental health was really good because I had these little goals every day. If you fast forward a couple of years from school, I went to university and I gave the triathlon away, and I noticed that my mood really did drop off. I went into a very dark place, and I was studying construction management and economics at uni. I was working in that construction industry where there was a bit of a boom in Perth at the time, and I had good income. I didn't have expenses because I was still living at home, and I basically found myself with the drug addiction. I was partying. I was, burning the candle at both ends, so to speak. And I actually went into rehab for a little while in 2010. And when I came out, my dad said, you need to get back on a bike, mate. And I said, yeah. The last thing I wanted to do was, 1, listen to my dad, and 2, get on a bike and start that whole process again. But I eventually gave in.
Well, hang on a second. Before we get to that, we're going to Quentin Tarantino this. We're going to do some non-linear storytelling. We understand that you got back on the bike. Clearly, you're 800 as recording this, you're 866,008 meters into your million. So clearly you got back on the bike and it worked out. But for people who are listening who might have teenage kids, do you remember the kinds of things, or have your parents talked about the kind of things they saw in you that gave them an indication that something wasn't right?
Sure. So I guess I was very family orientated growing up. Like, we'd have dinner every night together. We did a lot of things as a family, and I sort of started to distance myself from that. I was out more often than I was at home. I think my parents would say that I became more of an aggressive guy, and I was never an aggressive guy growing up. But I didn't want to respect their decisions. Like, I thought I was an adult, and I thought I had the ability to go and do my own thing. But I was miles from the truth.
Well, that's teenage stuff.
Yeah, I think we've all done it. But the giveaway for me was my parents decided, they were going to have a bit of a sticky beak through my room, and they found basically a whole lot of the gear that I was using at the time, and the party drugs and things. And basically it all came to a head when I got home from work one day. I went up to get changed after work, and it was all laid out on my bed. And that was like Groundhog Day, because I was like they know everything. Like, I'd walked into home, I'd said hi to them, they hadn't mentioned anything, and that was almost quite scary for me, that I'd gone in and they knew everything.
How old were you at the time?
I would have been around 20.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. And so I'm looking back now. I'm going to go out on a limb here, Jack, but having read enough about you, I'm going to say that there might have been some self-medication going on. How did you justify it at the time? What was it that drinking and using gave you?
It gave me the high, like the escape from normal life. I was studying a degree I wasn't really interested in, and I was working in an industry I wasn't interested in. And for me, it was getting away from that and feeling that sense of freedom. And whether that was on the weekends out at a nightclub with mates, whether it was, sitting in my room by myself, like, I needed to escape what was going on in day-to-day normal life. And I wasn't happy in normal day-to-day life. I didn't have goals. I didn't have ambitions. I wasn't focused on any one task. I was basically floating in the wind, and the drugs gave me something that gave me that focus. It gave me that escape. It gave me that sense of enjoyment and fun, something that I was missing in life.
You are. I know I did set you up to answer the question for you, but you are describing what my sponsor says hedonic recall, which is only remembering the parts which are the reasons that why you were chasing it. But what were the effects, both your health effects and the effects of the people around you, that you would either justify away or diminish or excuse away that were happening, and I'm assuming were happening with greater intensity?
How were the people around me affected by what I was doing?
Like, I'm thinking about my own drinking and using, right? I've been sober 12 and a half years, right? And so at the time, the way I was drinking and the way I was using and the things I was avoiding facing by drinking and using led my behavior to be quite shit. I was a bit of a crap person to work with. I had been, treated people in ways that I would, then the next day go, oh, I can't believe I did or said that. And then 5 hours later, I'd be drinking and using again, and I'd do the same shit again, but I would kind of minimize or diminish or explain that away, like, just so I could not have those uncomfortable feelings stop me from, grabbing another sixer and a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah. I think for me, like, if I was outside of home, like if I was at work or if I was, I don't know, with friends or with the family of friends, like I probably seemed like I was pretty well behaved, like they probably wouldn't pick anything, but it was more at home that sort of my parents copped the wrath of it. And at home I became a bit of a demon, because they were the people that I trusted and they were the people that I felt comfortable with. As soon as I was put in that position where I was with someone, whether it be the boss at work or the guy that I was working with, I was a bit of a saint. Like, I was a bit of a goody-goody. Like, I was all too happy to try and please them and keep them happy. But then when I got home, like, I changed. And I think it was because, I had that sense of trust and that relationship with my parents where, they saw the good, they saw the bad, they saw everything. And that was my place to unleash. And I think that's probably one of the things that, as you say, tipped them off to me using.
It probably says in the title of the podcast, hey, this is a guy that's, riding shitloads of bicycles, but sometimes these podcasts turn into talks about sobriety, because I know certainly when I was drinking and using, I didn't hear enough stories of people who are achieving fucking amazing things being sober and without, or having gotten sober or been through a program. And I think it's important to, have these conversations and let people kind of know that, there's another thing you can do that doesn't involve the glass Barbie. There's other things you can do that can bring you giant amounts of fulfillment and stuff. But I do know enough about these situations, particularly in the family dynamics when a kid, you're 20, but you're still living at home. The even though you're an adult, you're paying tax, you can go to prison. There's the familial kind of relationship is still there. There's there's still the parent-child state waiting to be activated. And in those situations, trying to get the person who's in the child role into rehab, if they don't want to go, they can go, but it won't stick. So what for you was the thing that helped you get there and helped you kind of understand what was actually going on?
So for me, that day that I got caught, if you want to call that the Groundhog Day, my dad took me out for dinner and he said we need to have a chat. And for me, that was pretty intimidating. And we went and had a chat. And I remember he very clearly, he said to me, like, unless you stop using, then I'm going to basically delete you from the family. Like, we don't want you anymore. Like, he was very strict and very stern with me. And that's exactly what I needed. And at that time, I basically decided, I can't afford to, and I don't want to lose the family that I have around me, because I do have all these good memories. I do love them. Yeah. And so I basically gave up cold turkey. And for me, I went right off the deep end. So I went into like a deep state of depression. I was suicidal. I basically went to my psychologist and was talking to him. He put me to a psychiatrist. We did some testing. And I think it was that sense for me of being suicidal that scared the shit out of me, because I had everything going for me. I wasn't sick. I didn't have I didn't have like crazy amounts of debt. Like, I didn't have anything to be suicidal over, and that was really scary. And so I think for me that was the thing that I didn't feel ashamed. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I needed help, and I realized that I needed help because I realized that it wasn't normal for me to feel like that. And so for me, going into that rehab, going through that recovery process, it was that sense of like, I need help. I realized that I needed the help. And for me, I never sort of rebounded back after that in a negative way, I mean.
Massive credit to your dad for doing that. We've spoken on this show a number of times. I had the doctor that helped get me much better on once, and we had this whole chat about loving disconnection, and that sometimes when particularly if it's your kid, it feels like the worst thing in the world to do, but actually removing your unconditional love from them is the best thing you can do for someone who's in that addiction spiral, because the alternative is like, we'll try and get you better, I'll lend you $100, lend you $200. They never learn the lesson. Yeah. They never hit the bottom. And he tells a story where that $200 was the $200 that eventually overdosed the kid. And it's horrifying to understand that, because you think you're doing the right thing. You think you're looking after this person who you love more than anything in the world. It's a really tough one. But goddamn, for your dad to do that is big. That is really, really big. What was rehab like? Did you you fight it? Were you like, I don't belong here, I'm fucking fine?
Like, I did feel out of place, because I realized that I had a problem, but I didn't realize, like, the idea or the word rehab is quite, for me, it's quite taboo. Like, it's like, wow, like I'm in a really bad place to be, sitting here with other people that are junkies, or, I was essentially a junkie. Like, I'm exactly the same, but I didn't see myself as a junkie because I still had a normal job, but I was still, exercising. I was still doing normal things, but I was a junkie. Yeah. And I was sitting in a room with other junkies and other people that were, from my point of view, crazy. But I was just the same. But I was seeing myself in this different light. So that was quite intimidating.
You're really lucky to have seen that. I've seen people just sit in those rooms and just go, yeah, but I'm not like you, therefore I don't have to do the things because I'm in the wrong place. I've been put here against my will, but I'm doing this because a court ordered me to do it or my parents want me to do it.
Yeah.
And that's really hard, that you're lucky that you saw that. Yeah. And bear in mind, people think you can end up being a junkie off of drugs you can get from the chemist. Like, don't think you have to score off like a weird dude in an alleyway or someone who drives WRX to become a junkie. No. You can convince enough GPs to give you the kind of drugs that will make you an addict any day of the week, man. Like, it's out there. It's out there, and no one's immune to it. I don't care how good your family is or how great your job is or your career is or your life is. It's absolutely, irrespective of your social status or where you are, it can come for you.
We always have this perception, like perhaps you're the same. It'd be interesting what other listeners think, that, a junkie is somebody that sits in an alleyway with a syringe in their arm and is shooting up heroin. Like, sure, that's one type of junkie, but there's other junkies that are going to work every day. They're making very good money, and then they come home, and that's when they hit the bottom. And it's like, it's difficult to describe what a junkie is because there isn't one type of junkie. There's high functioning, there's low functioning. It's
Mm. And the only way to define it for me, and there's more than 11 steps and less than 13 steps to help me get where I am. There we go. As long as the person is completely powerless over whether they do it or not. Now, this could be shopping, gambling, sex, drinking, using. If they have absolutely no choice in the matter, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how much or little the dosage. Doesn't matter how much or little the time spent doing it. That will then. It's a spiral that it's nigh impossible to get out of without help because the way our dopamine system gets so dysregulated, and it can be, and it can have long-lasting effects. I don't know about you, but the petrol I've poured on the fire of the brain I was born with left me in a far worse state than. I mean, it would have come for me eventually. I can guarantee you that. But I definitely sped things up a bit. So how do you begin to rebuild your life? Because I know, some people it might be, I'm only who I am because I'm, on the gambling apps with my mates and I'm, therefore I'm one of the boys and I'm here, or I only am who I am because I've got all these handbags and I spend all my money on these shoes or whatever, or like I only am who I am because I'm the, when the tequila comes out, that's when Party Tim arrives and off we go. I don't know a Party Tim. How do you then recreate the definition of yourself on the other side of that?
That's difficult. And I've got a bit of an obsessive compulsive personality. So for me with the drugs, it was all in. So then coming off the back of that, like I felt lost, and I think, again, like kudos to my dad for getting me on a bike and giving me that new focus. Because for me, it was just having that focus that gave me, like I had a high again suddenly. Like it was that exercise high. And I remember I did that first ride with him and immediately I was at work and I was looking at buying a bike. It was amazing how quickly I snapped from, being obsessed about one thing to being obsessed about the other. But it was exactly what I needed. And, what it's like looking at all the new things, like, which wheels am I going to use? Like it's all very geeky, but it gave me that new obsession. And then it was, it took time. Like to begin with, I was riding with my dad and his mates. Like I didn't have that group of guys around me at the time that, I had when I was partying. But, with time, I developed that group of friends again. I guess the cycling community became that group of friends. And I think, one of the great things about the cycling community is, I could be a 20-year-old guy sitting next to a 60-year-old guy in a group ride, and it doesn't really matter what age we are. We're still riding together. We're still sharing in that same experience. And for me, that's what's great about cycling is that inclusivity. But
Yeah.
that's what I needed. I needed that club environment. I needed the people around me. And that basically allowed me to sort of unlock that next chapter of my life.
Mate, even when I was at like when I was riding nothing like you, when I was riding 300 Ks a week, even at I would get smoked by that 60-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, even at my lightest, I would get smoked by that guy. And he looks like he's like rides twice a week.
Yeah.
It's just like there's some secret assassins in those group rides. I'm telling you, man, some secret assassins.
It's the ultimate level up cycling.
Yeah, sure is, man. Sure is. Your father, though, he's not just any old cyclist. Come on, you had, you can't be what you can't see. And the kind of riding your dad does isn't kind of regular, middle-aged man in lycra riding, is it?
No. So admittedly, I grew up with a dad that was very adventurous and was quite lucky that he retired at a young age. And he's diabetic. And I think one of the reasons he retired at a young age is that he realised that life was actually for living. And at the time, he had enough money to sort of leave work because he wanted to pursue that life that was worth living. And he decided he was going to ride his bike around the world. And so we grew up with his dad. He didn't do it all in one hit, so it wasn't like 2 years around the world. But every year he'd choose a chunk of the world that he was going to go and ride around. And so growing up, we had this dad that was always away doing these crazy adventures. And at the time, I didn't realise the impact that it was having on me. But I think it gave me that sense. I longed for that sense of adventure that my dad had followed as a 50-year-old guy. And I guess that's where the sort of the adventurous spirit in me comes from.
Well, you'd seen it happen. I mean, like, what would he do? Would he do like 3 weeks at a time, 4 weeks at a time?
I think the longest stint he did was 8 weeks. So he rode from China,
wow.
Shanghai to Istanbul. So across the Silk Road.
Right.
He was actually in the news because they ended up in a civil war in Tajikistan and they had to get helicoptered out. He's got some crazy stories, but this is scary shit. But for me, it was like, this is exciting shit.
At all times, when you get on a helicopter, if you're on a group ride and you get on a helicopter, be sure to stop the GPS because that will ruin your segment.
In my case, I'm actually leaving it on because I want the elevation.
You started, kind of doing these bigger and bigger rides. And what I kind of really love, there's one thing that you talk about that's really stuck with me in that when it comes to cycling and anyone, like I said earlier, anyone that's tried to ride a bicycle up a hill, it's hard. Yeah. All right. Not only is it your body weight, it's the weight of this machine beneath you. And yes, the more expensive or the better dentist you are, the lighter bike you have. But, still it's a heavy thing. And you've got to go up the same hill that you would walk up, doing an action that's not really like walking. And there's this word that cyclists pride themselves on. Oh, mate, I suffered. Yeah. There's even an app. There's a cycling app called the Sufferfest. Right? It's this word that people just pride themselves on. And the way you speak about that in relation to our mental health is, I find that's just really a really interesting way in to conversations you otherwise couldn't have.
I think, as cyclists, like you said, we enjoy, and it's not even just cyclists, it's runners, it's swimmers, it's, whatever it is. We celebrate the fact that we can suffer. And it's like, he can push himself so hard, or she can just bury herself when she's in the pool. And we celebrate that. But when it comes to mental health, it's seen as a weakness. He's suffering, let's just give him a bit of space, he needs time, or, why don't we celebrate the fact that we can suffer within our own minds and come out the other side? Why don't we celebrate that? I think it's society. I think society, it's a weakness to suffer in normal life. But in the sporting arena, it's seen as a badge of honor. And it's something that I'm passionate about trying to change. I want people to realize that suffering is not weak. Suffering is a sense of strength. And, to come out the other side is an immense sense of strength involved in achieving that.
There's no path to victory that does not involve suffering.
No.
Certainly in the athletic arena.
No. Absolutely not.
Not at all. And so similarly, when it comes to your mental health, there's no path to having better mental health that doesn't involve, I want to use the word suffering so people can get around it. There's no path to feeling better with your mental health that doesn't involve discomfort of doing the work that can get you there.
Yeah. And I think it's only through that suffering or the discomfort or the, it helps to put things in perspective as well, because, the high of achieving something is nothing if you haven't been through the low of, suffering or discomfort in order to get there. And I think without that level of discomfort, if you want to use that word, or suffering or hardship, the high is worth nothing. Because it's like a drug. Like if you were high every day, it would wear off very quickly. And I think it's part of that journey. Like the climbing to the top of the hill is the difficult part, and then the enjoyment is that that long descent. I think there's so many similarities.
Hang on a sec.
Sure.
We're getting a visit. Come on in, guys. Are you guys coming in? We're getting a visitor here.
Hey, who's here?
Purple.
Hey, it's so purple. Come on in. Come on in. Hey. This is
Hello.
Jack. Jack, this is Wolfie.
Oh, Wolfie, how are you?
How are you, Wolfie? You good? Yeah? Jack rides bicycles a very long way. We ride bicycles, don't we?
Dad?
What colour's our big bike?
Blue.
It's blue, isn't it? And we have a secret that you might need every time we go. So Wolf's got a seat on the back of his bike, and when we go up a very big hill, how do I get up the hill? What do you use? What sound does it make?
Tick, tick, tick.
He's got a kind of tooty horn on the back of his on his Yep Maxi bike seat, and that's the extra power that we need to get up the big hills.
That makes Dad go faster.
When you're doing your big mountain climbing next time, you call Wolf and Wolf will sort you out. I don't know where we were before Wolfie came in.
We were chatting about the fact that like suffering in the sporting arena is celebrated.
Yeah, and this idea of doing the work is, the work is uncomfortable because sometimes you've got to, certainly in my case when it came to my sobriety, it was like, oh, I'm face down in a gutter full of shit because of my choices. Right.
Yeah.
Can't blame anybody else for this. Okay, and that's hard. It's something I've been avoiding for a very long time. And it's hard to do that work. It's uncomfortable. It's discomfort. Like, especially if you've got to go through, any kind of childhood trauma or anything, it's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's victory at the other end.
Yeah. And the victory tastes so much sweeter when you've had to work to get there.
Yeah. And it's extraordinary. The adaptation of the brain to stimulus. The parallels with exercise I use all the time. I mean, I bet you at one point in your career, whether, you were riding 21 stages of the Tour de France in 10 days or, riding for 7 days, like breaking the world record for 7 days of distance unsupported. Like at one point he went, I'm the fittest I've ever been. Like how does that compare to how you are now?
I'm fitter than I've ever been now. Like, the difference being that, like, this is a year-long challenge. Like, a year is a long time, and it is, like, it is monotonous to say the least. Like, I do the same thing every day, every week. Sure, the number of meters I climb each day varies, but, like, I've become very accustomed to doing this. And it's only probably in the last 3 or 4 weeks that my body, the weight has started to fall off. Like I realize like I'm really pushing it now because, I'm one of these guys that can put on weight very quickly and I don't lose weight very quickly when I can do massive miles and I don't lose weight. But my body is now like, like you've done enough. Like we're coming to the end. We need some help and we're going to shed a bit of weight just to help you get through that last little bit. But like, I am. Some of the numbers at the moment are like the fatigue numbers are insanity.
I don't know what they are. Like, for help us understand what.
Okay, yeah. So for example, there's a metric called training stress score, TSS. So for a rider in the Tour de France, their typical TSS for that whole, say for a week of the Tour de France, is around 1,100 to 1,300. So that's how stressed their body is with that training load, riding back to back. This year, my training stress score has been 1,600 plus every single week for the year as a minimum. And so the level of fatigue, and it's just like doing 52 weeks of the Tour de France. Like, it is an insane level of stress on the body. And like, I'm getting through it. The riding I can deal with. Like, I'm happy to put myself through the absolute ringer to get this done. But I think one of the things that I've actually suffered with this year is that sense of raising money, because I can't control that. People donating money, it's up to them to donate. Like, I can't grab your wallet out of your pocket and grab $20 out of your wallet and put it in the donation bin, and I struggle with that because I like to try and control things. And like I said, the riding I can control, and that's great because I'll go out and I'll ride as much as I need to reach that 1,000,000 meters. But there's a limit to what I can do with the fundraising. And I'm just hoping that as I come to the end of the year and, the buzz sort of picks up and the light's there and I can see the end, that those donations pick up as well. Because I think, I'm doing this for a reason. I'm not doing it because I love climbing, hours on end on my bike. I'm doing it because I actually want to help people who don't have access or the ability to seek help. And, while it's great I get to ride a bike all day, it's actually not that great because I am absolutely in the box. I am incredibly fatigued, and I just hope that at the end of this it's all worthwhile, and I can help people that need that help.
It's not to be sniffed at. 260 odd thousand euro is a lot of money.
Yeah,
and you raise climbing 1,000,000 meters of elevation for €1,000,000 is it's a huge goal, and I get why it would be hard to see yourself 9 rides out from the end and seeing where the numbers are and being with how uncomfortable you are with that externality which you have no control over.
Yeah. I've sort of come to accept it. I'm like, I've done what I can do. Like, I've left no stone untouched.
Yeah.
And, I'm happy, like, I would love to reach €1,000,000, but if I don't, like, it is what it is.
Whatever happens, it is already incredible. All right, you have to know that already. It is unbelievable. There's things that you learn about yourself. And I've had a number of, like, having done some sort of endurance running myself, and had a number of people who done endurance events on the show. There's things that you find out about yourself and things you find out about the way your brain works that only happen when you have been going for 6 or 7 hours non-stop. What have you learned about the negative thoughts that are going, just stop, mate, just stop, just pull over, it's fine, just stop? Like, what have you learned about how to deal with those kind of thoughts?
Like, I've what you've said is 100% right. Like, I've developed some tips and tricks and tools. Like, I feel like I have like a toolbox next to me now that I can use. I can grab out the hammer tool at any one time and I can knock that little voice on the head. Like, I've developed these tools, and little things like, for example, somebody wants to get up in the morning and go for a run, anyone. And, the alarm goes off, they don't really want to get up. Like, how can you combat that? For me, like, I feel that all the time. Like, when the alarm goes off and I have to go out and ride for 6 or 7 hours, the one thing I do is I'll go into the bathroom and I'll look myself in the mirror. And I'll tell myself that I'm going to go out and I'm going to ride that 6 or 7 hours. Because 6 or 7 hours is nothing in the bigger scheme of things. And whether that's a 5-kilometre run or a 2-kilometre swim, like, put it into perspective. That sense of putting things into perspective and looking yourself in the eye as you do that, I find is very powerful. And then when you are doing it and it is tough, take yourself back to that that time that you were looking in the mirror and you told yourself that you were going to do it and you've made that agreement within your own mind, for me, that is so powerful. Like, you've told yourself you're going to do it, so don't let yourself down. For me, that is one of the most powerful things I've learned this year, is that, that agreement within yourself.
Yeah, what I love is like using the mirror as almost a visual cue for the two selves that we hold within us. There's the reactive self, and then there's the observant self. There's the person that says the dumb thing in the meeting, and then there's you going, "Fuck, that was dumb." There's the two of we live in there together, right?
Yeah.
But we don't want to, but we do. We don't hear voices. There's two parts of us, right?
Yeah.
And by using the mirror, you are your own self is holding you accountable, which I really, really love. My old manager back in LA, John Ferret, amazing bloke, he used to say to me, "Mate, you can do this if you can do the work before the audition or not or whatever." He goes, "Only you know how hard you've worked to make your dreams come true."
Yeah.
Like, you could not get the job, and I'll say sorry you didn't get the job. You're the only one that will lie in bed at night and know actually how much effort you put in.
Yeah.
You've got to live with that. I don't. I remember
Yeah.
hearing that going, "Oh, fuck, you're right." Yeah, okay.
I read a book recently, and it sort of touches on this idea of your potential as a human. And you imagine, like, whether or not you believe in God, when life comes to an end, I want you to picture that you're at the gates to heaven or hell, and you get there, and they say to you, "All right, let's have a look there, Osher. What has he achieved in his life?" And you can sort of see it all unfolding. You get these thoughts and memories coming back to you. Imagine if you were standing there and you realize that you actually hadn't achieved your full potential. Like, how scary a thought is that? Like, life's over and you haven't actually achieved what you had the ability to achieve. And for me, that sense of looking in the mirror and asking yourself, like, am I going to do this or am I not going to do it? That's almost the same process in my mind. It's like, am I going to achieve what I want to achieve, or am I going to, roll over and go back to bed? Like, how badly do I want this? Like, how badly do I want to be my best self? And for me, that is like incredibly powerful. Like, I have goosebumps thinking about that definition of, what it is that we as humans have the ability to achieve in our lifetimes, and how many of us actually achieve that.
What you're saying is it's a fantastic way to get that other part of our brain to go, "Oh, actually, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I will go do that thing." 8,848 meters is okay. I'm done for the day. All right, that's a shit ton of elevation, and the amount of distance you've got to cover to get that kind of elevation is a lot. Like, we're talking sometimes hundreds of kilometers to get it, right? But we only see the sunny days on Instagram, don't we? We don't see the piss freezing rain, the truck's passing too close to you, you're out of food, your glycogen's through the floor, you're completely on, you're dizzy from not eating enough. Oh, God, another 48 Ks to go. Like, the fuckets must really creep up on you. How do you get past them then?
I use a secret weapon called music. So for me, music is like, it's, I guess, like sensory deprivation. So I don't listen to music until I really need to listen to music. And this is one of, I say, a couple of tools that I use. But like, for an Everest, for example, you've got 12 hours on the bike. I will never listen to music until I've done 6 or 7 hours.
Right.
Because for me, the music then becomes that reward. And for me, it's those little rewards, whether it's music or whether it's the coffee chill I'm going to have at the end of the ride or the muffin. It's setting those little milestones and then being able to tick them off and achieve them that helps me get through that difficult time. And whether that's, 2 kilometers into a 5 kilometer run or it's 6 hours into a 12-hour day on the bike, I think those little rewards, no matter how big or small they are, like, it doesn't have to be, you're going to go and buy yourself a new car. You can reward you something with listening to your favorite song on Spotify. Like, that's still a reward because you haven't listened to it for 6 hours. And having those little, for me, that's a little trick that I use to sort of get through a difficult time. It's like, if I just get to the top of that next climb, then I'm going to put the music in. That's enough for me to get there.
And that really is when it comes to, huge events like this, but also say someone wants to drop 5 kilos by summer, or say somebody wants to do better on their report card. It's very hard to do all at once.
Yeah.
How have you found breaking, and you cycle most of the time, besides that time you went to London and did 180 hill repeats, which is bananas. Most of the time you cycle a very familiar route. How does it help you to break down this gargantuan task, these 12 hours of suffering? How does it help you to break it down to, hour, K, corner, pedal stroke?
Yeah. I never look at it. So if we look at it, let's look at 1,000,000 meters. That seems like a whole lot of elevation.
Yeah.
But I never look at it.
Because it is. It's bananas, mate. It is a whole lot of elevation.
I don't look at it as 1,000,000 meters. I look at it like this. I've got 52 weeks of 20,000 meters, which means I've got 52 weeks, 7 days in every week, of on average 3,000 meters every day, which is on average 4 or 5 hours, which on average is a quarter of 1/6 of a day. Like it's not that bad. And by putting it into perspective, by creating these little, I guess, goals that you're ticking off, a goal within a goal becomes very powerful because you're achieving something every day and it's all being put towards that end goal. So for me, it's breaking it down into small, manageable chunks. And if I can achieve those little chunks each day, then that keeps me content. It keeps me focused on the bigger goal without it seeming too overwhelming. Because the idea of going and climbing 1,000,000 meters in a year, like, how do you break that down? Like, you'd go crazy if you didn't.
I'm guessing when you've got enough experience to know I need this many calories when I go out. I need to be able to stop for water here, there, and everywhere. For anybody that has never had it happen to them, when you run out of available glycogen, when you run out of, so all the carbohydrates that I've eaten and my fat stores can't switch over fast enough, have now run out and my body is no longer working properly, and it can affect you cognitively, it can affect your vision. Have you found yourself in that spot?
Yeah.
Like literally 100 and something kilometers from home?
Yeah. And the sensation, like, to give listeners like an idea, it's like, you're seeing stars. Like, imagine your vision goes blurry, the lights become very bright, you feel lightheaded, like it is not a comfortable feeling. And like I've been there, and it's all learning. Like, I've got some strategies now. Like, I know that I eat every half an hour. I have bottles loaded with carbohydrate. Like, it's a matter of putting that structure in place for, I guess, a bit of a nutrition structure is very important. But like, it's all learning, and I've been there, and I've been miles from home on a Sunday and nothing's open, and it's not much fun. But hey, when you get home and you crack open the can of Fanta or whatever it is that you've got in the fridge, it tastes so good.
Anyone listening is probably, I'm sure everybody listening probably has an idea of how many calories are in something. They probably at least know, if I eat the supersized number 2 meal at the burger joint every day, I'm not going to fit into my jeans in 2 weeks from now. It's just not going to happen, because I'm consuming more than my 2.5 or how many thousand calories a regular adult has to consume in a day. And anyone that's done an interval training class or gone to the gym knows, what I fucking work for it. Like 300 calories, that's it? That's like half a Mars. That's half a chocolate bar.
Yeah.
What are we talking? How many calories a day?
Yeah.
Let's be Lance Armstrong and Oprah. How many calories a day? No, the first time, not the second time. How many calories a day are you going through?
So every hour I'm on the bike, I'm burning around 1,000 calories. So on a day where I'm doing 12 hours, I'm burning probably just under 1,000 calories now, but I'm burning around 10,000 calories. And then I add on top like your daily 2,500, there's 12,500 calories. And then the fact that your metabolism is firing, like it's really hard to consume enough food not to lose weight. And like, I'm not going to lie, like every now and again I'll end up at McDonald's because like I need the calories. Like there's no other way that I can actually physically consume that number of calories.
You're like a bodybuilder, but like without the like super gross. Like when you see those bodybuilder documentaries and they show them eating, it's the most terrifying thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
They're trying to pump. They're trying to pump similar amounts of calories into their bodies to get the being in caloric excess to get the muscle synthesis, the protein synthesis. But this is entirely like every day. Jesus, bro.
So every day I'm not burning that much. So every day typically I'll burn 4,000 or 5,000 on the bike. And then I'll have my typical 2,500 daily burn. So let's say 5,000 to 7,000 calories a day. So to give you an idea, the grocery bill is through the roof.
I'll bet. I will absolutely bet. But while we're talking about on a typical day, 4,000 or 5,000 calories, what's that, a 6-hour ride, 5-hour ride?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So 6 hours of hard riding up bloody mountains. You can eat that in about 17 minutes at your local drive-through. So just think about that. I'm not even shitting you. Like, next time you're going through a drive-through and you're ordering the bigger thing with the extra thing and another piece of that, few more pieces of that one, please. You can sit in your car in the car park and you can eat that amount of calories like that.
Ask yourself if tomorrow you're going to go and ride that 6 or 7 hours on the bike to burn off those calories. Yeah. If the answer's no, then don't eat it.
Well, my buddy Ruben Meerman, he's a scientist, and he wrote the whole book about fat and he body fat, human, like the kind that we like to get rid of so we can get in our favorite genes. And he always says that it's very, very easy to out eat your exercise, but it's very hard to out exercise your eating.
Yeah.
And hearing you talk about that, it's I am amazed, at what the human body can do, and also amazed at your personal ability to be willing to put yourself in that spot and go, okay, let's see what happens here. Let's see what doors we can unlock here. You mentioned earlier when you were a teenager that when you were running and swimming and riding all the time, that you were quite balanced. How's your mental headspace with all this stuff going on?
Generally, it's pretty good, but I'm not going to lie. This year has put a lot of strain on my mental headspace, and I think that's because I'm just fatigued all the time. Yeah. And when you're fatigued, you're a little bit. My partner would say that I'm, a little bit grumpy at times, and like I would agree with her. Like it's difficult because like. This is also work. So I have the stress of, what's happening next year? Like I'm still trying to achieve this, but I'm already trying to plan for next year. And there's little stresses that I think people perhaps don't realize that really add a lot of stress. Like I've tried not to get sick all year, which means I don't really go out. Like I have to be quite careful. Like I don't, there's things like I don't do this year because like I'm trying to achieve something huge, and that adds a level of stress, and it adds a level of probably mental fatigue. And so for that reason, I'd say like generally I'm very good, but at times I am like yesterday I had a really shitty day. Like I just didn't have a good day, wasn't in a good headspace, felt like I was on the bike for an eternity and didn't enjoy it. But that's part of life. And I think, whether it's on the bike or whether it's in normal life, like we have good days and we have bad days. And whether or not you suffer from depression or not, like life is a bit of a roller coaster. You're going to have good times, you're going to have bad times. And like we said, like the good times aren't as good if you haven't gone through the bad times. And that's just life. And that's how I'm looking at this year. Like I'm going to be good, I'm going to be bad, but that's all part of the journey.
It's going to be over any second. And that's, what do you do then after you've had 2 weeks of lying in an ice bath? Like, what do you do?
I'm genuinely nervous because I'm worried about not having that structure.
And that's like, I mean, I'm someone like I've been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. Structure has been a huge part of me being okay. As long as I know what I'm focused on, I'm all right. When I don't know what I'm focused on, I know it's harder.
Yeah.
In the last couple of months, I haven't been able to be very physical, which has sucked. But I've found other things to take at the time because I know I'm not very good if I don't I'm not going to be honest. I mean, like, I'm fine by myself, but I'm not very good to be around. You know, there's 3 other people in my home, and I don't want to get punished. You know?
I think the structure is very important. And, whether that's getting up in the morning, having that glass of water before you have your breakfast, like just building some of those like key habits, it's a sense of purpose as well as like a sense of discipline. And I think having that in your life, you can always let your hair down. But for me, I find having that structure, that discipline, that purpose, it keeps me very focused. And I think what I'm going to struggle with is, just not having that purpose to begin with. You've earned some time off. That's great. Like, I want the time off, but I need something to keep my mind busy.
I do know, though. I know someone who is in a very, very competitive cycling environment, and they didn't touch the bike for about 4 years after it ended, because I think the relationship or what the bike was meant to them might have been a bit fraught. But thankfully, e-bikes came along, and this person was like, "Hey, this is fun." Like, Wolf and I have a turn cargo bike is the one that he and I were talking about before. That's the fucking best, man.
Yeah.
Carries 200 kilos, carries me and him and Audrey and our sun umbrella and everything down to the beach, down to the park. It's the best. I love it. I don't
E-bikes
give
are changing
2 shits
the world,
that it's got motors on it.
Wow.
Oh, mate, it's unreal.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Mate, no one does this alone. And it's clear that you've got you're very focused. You're a person who has an unreasonable amount of focus and drive. All right, there's no question you have that, considering the things that you've done in your life. Yet every player needs a coach. What are some things that you've found, whether it be on this adventure or previous, that your coach or coaches have said to you that have really made a difference?
Surrounding yourself with people. So, I spend a lot of time alone on the bike, and I don't mind doing that. But I think the power of having people around you to pick up your energy, whether that's a partner, whether that's the family, whether that's friends, going and actually spending time doing something different with other people is really powerful. And taking your mind off, for me, it's work. So taking my mind away from work and doing something different is, a breath of fresh air. And, trying to focus on different things. So like a hobby. Like, I don't have a hobby, but I want a hobby. And back in Australia, I used to surf a lot. I used to love woodwork. Like, at the moment, I'm looking for something that I can do that gives me that escape from the cycling. Not that I hate the cycling, but I realised that I need a break from it. And if I can go to the beach and have a surf, if I can go to the mountains in winter and snowboard for a couple of hours, like, it keeps life exciting. It keeps life fresh. And doing that with other people is, it's a whole lot of fun. And while I get caught up with doing my own thing on the bike and being super, super focused, one thing I've realised these last couple of years is that you need to switch off from what you're doing, and you need to engage with other people in other walks of life to see what else is going on in the world, similar to what you said.
Speaking of surfing, it just reminded me of it. Lane Beachley is a legendary surfer anywhere in the world. She has this saying, if you focus on the why, the how will figure itself out. Has finding the why helped you do these incredible ultra distance races and adventures?
Yeah. And for me, I think there's 2 whys. The reason I'm doing it is because I actually enjoy that sense of pushing myself. And I'm also doing it because I want to help others. And at times when I'm out there and it is difficult and I don't really want to be out there, I have to remind myself, like, why am I doing this? And it's because I'm actually trying to make a difference. I'm trying to help somebody that doesn't have the ability to help themselves. For me, that's generally enough. Like, the fact that I enjoy pushing myself is secondary now to, I guess, that first primary goal is I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I have access to mental health care and I have people around me. But there's people, I've got neighbours and there's people living, a stone's throw from me that don't have that. And I find that it's unfair that they don't have that. And for me, like if I can ride a bike and I can make a difference while I'm riding a bike, then my purpose in life, like I feel very content. That's how I get through some difficult times.
That's so brilliant to hear. Mate, I could talk to you for a long time, and if my hip was, I swear to God, mate, if my hip was any better, if I was in a different space, I would find a way to come and, you know, be a part of that last one, because I'm pretty sure you've got some pretty heavy hitters already lined up to come and join you on that last one. And I'm also you know, very thrilled that as a man who's constantly searching for calories, I believe that there's a Haribo gummy factory outlet in your town.
There is indeed. I know it very well. It's close.
Do they know you on a first name basis?
I know them on a first name basis.
Mate, I love it, dude. It just, you're the best, mate. Thank you so much for taking the time with me. I know, you know, it's very busy for you right now, and every hour of your day must be really structured around recovery and stuff like that. So thank you really for taking the time to do this. And I'm stoked, mate. I'm just so stoked for you that you're even doing it. Like I'm just stoked that you are doing it for you. You know, the things you're finding out about yourself, because I know the things I found about myself facing stuff like, and nothing like you, but like facing my own challenges is like, you recreate yourself as a human, you know, and that's the thing that I don't know if people can realize, you know, like you have every day, you can make a completely different version of yourself. Your brain will fucking wire doing stuff like this. And it's amazing.
Mate, it's been good to talk about it because it also helps me to, you know, realize some of these things, getting your perspective on it and sort of, you know, bouncing back and forth. It's been good.
Mate, I'm so grateful. Sleep. Do all the sleep in the world.
January 1.
And when you, yeah, man. All right. Well, you take care. All right. And I can't wait to follow you as you cross that finish line, man.
Thanks, mate. We'll chat soon.